The forgotten signal. The Deep Space Monitoring Station Horizon's Edge drifted silently through the void, its sensors constantly sweeping the darkness for any sign of intelligent life. Commander Zara Voss had been stationed here for 3 years, listening to the cosmic whispers that traveled between distant stars. Most days brought nothing but background radiation and the occasional meteor shower. Today would be different. Zara adjusted her headset as another wave of static washed through the communication array. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. Something had been nagging at her all morning, a persistent itch in the back of her mind that told her to keep listening, keep searching. The signal came at 1427 station time. It was weak, almost lost in the cosmic background noise, but there was a pattern to it. A rhythm that spoke of intelligence, of purpose. Zara's fingers flew across her console, isolating the frequency and boosting the gain. The static cleared, and for the first time in centuries, a voice spoke across the void. Is anyone there?" The words came through the universal translator, tinged with exhaustion and something that might have been hope. "I have been calling for so long," Zara's heart pounded as she activated the response transmitter. First contact protocols demanded she alert her superiors immediately, but something in that voice stopped her. It sounded so tired, so alone. "This is Commander Zara Voss of the Terran Deep Space Monitoring Station Horizon's Edge," she transmitted back. "I can hear you. What is your location?" The silence stretched for what felt like eternity before the response came. You can hear me? After all this time, someone finally—" The voice trailed off, and Zara could swear she heard something, like sobbing through the static. "Yes, I can hear you clearly. Are you in distress? Do you need assistance?" "I am Nithara of the Celestial Dominion," came the reply, stronger now. "I have been imprisoned in this dimensional fold for over 800 of your years. My people, they are gone. Their empire fell to dust while I remained trapped here, calling out to anyone who might listen." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. 800 years. The loneliness of it was almost unimaginable. "How did you become trapped?" "I was a keeper of forbidden knowledge," Nithara explained, her voice carrying across the vastness between them. "When my people discovered what I had learned about the nature of reality itself, they feared it. They bound me in this prison between dimensions where I could do no harm to their carefully ordered universe." The communication crackled with interference, but Nithara's voice pushed through. "But you, human, why do you listen? Why do you care about the fate of one such as me?" Zara paused, considering the question. Why did she care? The rational part of her mind said this could be dangerous, that alien civilizations might not share human values. But the larger part of her, the part that had always driven her to reach out to the stars, knew the answer. "Because no one should be alone," she said simply. "Because even if we've never met, even if we're from different worlds and different species, suffering is suffering. And if I can help end yours, then I have to try." The silence that followed was different this time. Not empty, but full of something Zara couldn't quite name. "In all my centuries of calling out," Nithara finally replied, "you are the first to answer, the first to offer aid without asking what you might gain in return. Your species, they are not like mine were." "What were your people like?" Zara asked, settling back in her chair. Something told her this conversation would be a long one. "Calculating, efficient. They measured every action by its benefit to the collective whole. When I discovered the fundamental equations that govern the space between spaces, they saw only the potential for chaos. They could not understand that knowledge itself is neither good nor evil, only its application." Zara nodded, even though Nithara couldn't see her. "Knowledge can be frightening when we don't understand its implications, but that doesn't mean we should hide from it." "No, Nithara agreed. But they feared what I might do with what I knew. They feared I might unravel their perfect order. So they created this prison, this fold in space-time where I exist but cannot affect the physical universe. But you can communicate, Zara pointed out. That's something. Only recently, Nithara admitted. The dimensional barriers have been weakening over the centuries. I began to detect signals from the outside universe, perhaps 50 of your years ago. I have been trying to make contact ever since, but the energy required... Her voice faded slightly. I am not infinite, Commander Voss. Each transmission drains me further. Zara felt urgency building in her chest. Then we need to get you out of there. Can you transmit your coordinates? I can try, but the process will exhaust what remains of my strength. And even if you could find me, I do not know if it is possible to break these bonds from the outside. Let me worry about the how, Zara said firmly. You just focus on staying alive until we can reach you. Why? The question came softer now, vulnerable in a way that made Zara's heart ache. Why would you risk so much for someone you have never seen? Someone whose very existence might be a threat to your kind? Zara stood and walked to the observation window, gazing out at the star field beyond. Because that's what we do. Humans, I mean. We see someone in trouble, and we help. We reach out to those who are lost and alone. It's not always logical, and it doesn't always work out well for us. But it's who we are. She pressed her palm against the cool glass. Maybe your people were different. Maybe they thought only of efficiency and order. But we've learned that the universe is a big, dark, lonely place. If we don't look out for each other, who will? Even for strangers? Even for aliens you know nothing about? Especially for them, Zara replied without hesitation. Because the moment we stop caring about others, the moment we decide that only our own kind matter, we become something less than what we could be. There was a long pause before Nithara spoke again, and when she did, her voice carried a note of wonder. In all my years of study, in all the knowledge I accumulated about the fundamental forces of the universe, I never understood this compassion that extends beyond tribal boundaries. Your species truly is remarkable. We have our flaws, Zara admitted. We fight among ourselves sometimes. We make mistakes. But when it comes to helping someone in need, she smiled. That's when we're at our best. The coordinates, Nithara said suddenly. I will transmit them now, while I still have the strength. But know this, Commander Zara Voss of the Terran Deep Space Monitoring Station Horizon's Edge. Whatever happens next, you have already given me something precious. What's that? Hope. For the first time in 8 centuries, I have hope. The transmission that followed was unlike anything Zara had ever seen. Her instruments went wild as dimensional coordinates flooded her systems, numbers and equations that seemed to bend reality around them. When it finally ended, her console sparked and went dark, but not before the data was safely stored. Zara stared at the readings, her mind racing. The coordinates pointed to a location in the Veil Nebula, 2 weeks away at maximum burn. It would require authorization from Command, a full rescue mission, and technology they weren't even sure they possessed. She reached for her communication panel to contact Captain Torres, then hesitated. What if Command decided it was too risky? What if they determined that one alien life wasn't worth the resources? The thought made her stomach turn. Nithara had waited 800 years for someone to answer her call. Zara wouldn't let bureaucracy be the thing that condemned her to 800 more. She opened the channel. This is Commander Voss to Captain Torres. Priority Alpha communication required. I have something you need to see. The choice that changes everything. The dimensional barriers around Nithara's prison pulsed with malevolent energy as the human ship Meridian approached the coordinates in the Veil Nebula. Captain Torres stood on the bridge, watching the impossible. Geometric patterns that twisted through space ahead of them. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp around the prison, creating optical illusions that made her crew seasick just looking at them. "Sensor readings are all over the place, Captain," reported Science Officer Park, her voice tight with frustration. "Whatever that thing is, it's actively interfering with our instruments. I'm getting readings that suggest it's simultaneously the size of a moon and smaller than an atom." Chief Engineer Rodriguez's hands flew over his console as alarms began to sound throughout the ship. "The dimensional distortions are playing havoc with our power systems. Main reactor efficiency is down to 60% and falling." Torres gripped the rail beside her command chair. They'd made it this far through 2 weeks of the most challenging navigation any of them had ever attempted. The Veil Nebula itself was treacherous enough, with its constantly shifting gas clouds and unpredictable energy storms. But the closer they got to Nithera's coordinates, the more reality seemed to fight against their presence. Communications. "Can you reach her?" Torres asked. Zara's fingers danced across her console, trying to cut through the dimensional static. "I'm getting fragments, Captain. The prison is interfering with our transmissions." A broken voice crackled through the speakers, barely recognizable as Nithara. "Warned you. Dangerous. Turn back before—" "Nithara, this is Commander Voss," Zara transmitted. "We're here. We're going to get you out." The response came in waves of static, punctuated by desperate words. "Foolish humans. Prison designed to— anyone who approaches. Become trapped. Like me." The ship shuddered as they crossed some invisible threshold. Emergency lighting flickered on as their main systems struggled against the dimensional interference. Through the viewports, the crew could see the prison itself now, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Parts of it appeared solid while others flickered in and out of existence like mirages. "My God," whispered Navigation Officer Kim. "It's beautiful." And it was. Despite the obvious malevolence of its purpose, the prison was a work of art that defied human understanding. Geometric patterns flowed across its surface in colors that had no names, while mathematical equations wrote themselves in light across its faceted walls. At its center, barely visible through the translucent barriers, was a figure of pure energy, pulsing weakly like a dying star. "That's her," Zara breathed. "That's Nithara." Dr. Watson studied the readings from her medical scanners. "The energy signature is unlike anything I've ever seen. She's definitely alive, but her energy levels are critically low. If we don't get her out soon—" "How do we breach the barrier?" Torres asked Rodriguez. The engineer shook his head grimly. "Captain, I've been running calculations for the past hour. The energy required to crack that thing would vaporize our ship and probably take out half the nebula with it." "There has to be another way," Zara insisted. "She's been trapped for 800 years. We can't just leave her there." Torres studied the prison structure, her mind racing. There was something about its design that nagged at her, something familiar. "Rodriguez, what if we don't try to break it open? What if we find another way in?" "Captain, look at the pattern. It's not just a prison, it's a puzzle. The people who built this thing were mathematicians, philosophers. They wouldn't have created something purely destructive. There has to be a way to solve it." Science Officer Park's eyes widened as she began to understand. "You think it's designed to be opened, but only by someone who understands the principles behind it." "Exactly. Zara, can you establish a stronger connection with Nithara? We need to know more about how this thing works." Zara worked frantically at her console, pouring more power into the communications array. The ship's lights dimmed as energy was redirected, but finally Nithara's voice came through clearly. "You should not have come," she said, her mental voice heavy with exhaustion and fear. "The prison feeds on the life force of any who approach it. Already I can feel it drawing energy from your ship, your crew." "Then we better work fast," Torres replied through Zara's transmission. "Tell us how to get you out of there." It cannot be done from the outside. The mathematical locks require someone to solve them from within the prison's influence. But to enter means to share my fate. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. The implications were clear. To save Nithara, someone would have to enter the prison and risk becoming trapped themselves. "I'll do it," Zara said without hesitation. "Absolutely not," Torres responded immediately. "I'm not sacrificing one of my crew for..." "For what, Captain? For an alien we've never met? For someone whose people are gone and who has no one left?" Zara turned to face her superior officer, her eyes blazing with determination. "You asked me once why I volunteered for deep space duty. It wasn't for the adventure or the discovery. It was for moments like this, for the chance to prove that we're better than our fears." Torres studied the younger woman's face. She saw herself 20 years ago, full of idealism and unshakable moral certainty. "The prison could kill you, Zara, or worse, trap you alongside her." "Maybe, but what's the alternative? We leave her there to die slowly while we fly home and pretend we never heard her calling for help?" Zara shook her head. "I can't do that, Captain. I won't." Dr. Watson stepped forward. "If Commander Voss is determined to do this, I want to monitor her vital signs throughout the process. Any sign that the prison is affecting her negatively, and we extract her immediately." "How?" Rodriguez asked. "If she gets trapped in there, then we find another way," Torres said firmly. "We don't leave our people behind either." The next hour was spent in frantic preparation. Zara suited up in the ship's most advanced environmental gear, equipped with every monitoring device and communication system they could fit on her. A transport pod was modified to get her as close to the prison as possible without the ship itself being pulled in. As she prepared to leave, Zara opened a final channel to Nithara. "I'm coming in. Are you ready?" "Why?" came the reply, filled with wonder and disbelief. "Why would you risk everything for me? We are strangers. My people would never have done such a thing for an alien species." Zara smiled as she sealed her helmet. "Then maybe that's why they're gone and we're still here. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in being invulnerable. Sometimes it's in being willing to be vulnerable for others." The transport pod separated from the Meridian and drifted toward the crystalline prison. As it approached, the geometric patterns on the surface began to shift, responding to the presence of a conscious mind willing to enter. Doorways of light opened in the seemingly solid walls, revealing a pathway into the prison's heart. "I can see the mathematical locks," Zara reported as she guided the pod inside. "They're beautiful, like living equations." Her voice began to fade as the dimensional barriers closed around her. On the bridge of the Meridian, Torres watched the readings. "From Zara's suit flicker and distort. Communications are breaking down," Park reported. "We're losing her signal." But just before the connection failed completely, they heard Zara's voice one more time, clear and strong. "I can see her. Nithara, I'm here. You're not alone anymore." In the heart of the prison, two beings from different species, separated by vast gulfs of biology and philosophy, reached out to each other across the darkness. And for the first time in 800 years, Nithara began to hope that freedom might actually be possible. The mathematical locks awaited their solution, but now there were two minds working on the problem instead of one. Human intuition and alien knowledge working together against the cold logic of an ancient prison. Outside, the crew of the Meridian waited and watched, ready to face whatever consequences their compassion might bring.